What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking about Gran Turismo Sport versus iRacing. Now, I wrote down some questions that I've been getting from comments from you guys when I've been streaming this, and I just thought that I would make a video comparing the two because I've been playing a lot of iRacing lately, and I think I've pretty much have made my conclusion about this versus GT Sport. Now, a lot of you are going to think like, oh, how can you compare the two? But you most certainly can. Now, trust me, coming from me, someone who's played Gran Turismo for a long time, who's played some of the best people in the world finals, I really have a lot to say when it comes to playing Gran Turismo at that top level and then now trying out iRacing. They're both a lot different, but they're more similar than you think. So this is one question that I got all the time, and it was, which is more realistic? Now, guys, we have to, this question kind of needs to stop, okay? So we need to look at this question a little bit differently. So in terms of it being more realistic, I have no idea because I've never driven a GT3 Ferrari before, or a GT3 car at all, or a GT4. I've never driven these kind of cars. Now, I've had a lot of sports cars. I've driven a lot of expensive cars in real life, but that does not translate to being at Lime Rock Park right here behind a Porsche safety car and going around the track. So it's impossible for anyone, unless they're a race car driver, to kind of tell you what is more realistic in terms of how these cars feel in real life. Now, I will say, when you're playing iRacing versus Gran Turismo Sport, the track detail, the tire wear, and the damage are huge. And I think that this makes iRacing a completely different level of realism. Because as you're going to see, this is a replay. That's me right there in the red Ferrari on the right. That's going to be, I qualified first in this race. But as you're going to see in this replay, the guy in second is kind of afraid to pass me or hit me because the damage is so heavy. It's so realistic in this. If you bump someone a little bit, you could literally ruin your whole race. Like, you could get front end damage. You could, if somebody hits you a little bit too hard from behind, it could actually bend your rear bumper. You can, your wheel could be all damaged if you hit the wall. So I like that fear in iRacing that you actually have to be cautious like you would in real life. See, in Gran Turismo Sport, you can late brake and kind of bump somebody a little bit, and the only thing that you have to worry about is maybe a little bit of a penalty. But you're never going to get any serious damage that's going to force you to pit. There's not really that much to worry about, and I think that that's the biggest difference between the two, is that I think iRacing takes a lot of little things into account that Gran Turismo kind of overlooks a bit. So another question that I got, which has the best force feedback? Now, no question about it, this definitely wins for iRacing. Now, I'm not sure, same thing with Assetto Corsa Competizione, all these kind of games. I've noticed that playing on PC, I've experienced a lot better force feedback on my direct drive. So nothing against Gran Turismo here. I do think that Gran Turismo does have fantastic force feedback, especially compared to Forza. I have tried Forza 7 on here and Forza Horizon, and Gran Turismo still does a fantastic job in their force feedback, but I definitely do feel a bit more when it comes to iRacing. Next question, the graphics. Okay, this is interesting. So you would think that the graphics would be way better on iRacing because it's PC, and I have a pretty beefy PC, and I have this all on max graphics, and I still think that Gran Turismo looks better than iRacing. I'm definitely disappointed in the way this game looks. It really, really does look dated. Like I said, the driving is great, but in terms of graphics, I'm going to have to say, Gran Turismo all day. All right, two questions here. We got, how difficult is iRacing, and is it worth the money? All right, so this is something that I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be asking yourself. Is iRacing worth the money, and is it hard to get used to? Well, let's talk about the difficulty. Difficulty is not a problem at all, okay? Now, if you are an A+ driver in Gran Turismo and you try to hop back into iRacing, yeah, there's going to be a learning curve. It's going to be a little bit difficult for you, especially the braking. This is where hardware makes a big difference. So, and it's something, I'm going to call this a pro for iRacing, because for once, and this is honestly, even compared to Assetto Corsa Competizione, your hardware makes a difference when you play iRacing. I truly believe that, because in this game, if you go full brake in a GT3, if you're 100% brake, you will lock your brakes up. So you have to learn how to only do about 80 or 90% brake, and you need to learn how to trail brake efficiently without locking up your brakes. You're going to notice in here, I'm not locking up my brakes. I'm actually braking about 82, 83%, and then I'm trail braking a lot. And that's how you can be fast in this game, is just by learning how to brake. Having a good load cell really does help with that, because you can make your load cell heavy so you can't achieve full brake that easily. So if you were running something like a T3PA that's a range pedal set, you might struggle with this a little bit. You're gonna have to tinker with the settings, because you might tend to lock up your brakes a lot. In terms of, is it worth the money? Guys, I hate this question, because I can't tell you what's worth the money. It really just kind of depends how deep your pockets are, and it depends on what you're trying to get out of this. Now, if you're only interested in road cars, it's really not that expensive, right? So for me, it cost me, well, it was like 12 bucks or something to get this Ferrari, and then I'm entered in a season right now. So every track that comes up in the season, if you don't have that track, you have to buy each track, and then you play that track for a week. Well, for me, that's not that much money, because I don't really play that much anymore, and since I can't play all the time, I'm not really spending that much money, and I don't mind spending an extra, 14, 50 bucks every now and then to buy a new track. And once you buy those tracks and cars, you own them, and you're never going to have to buy them again. Now, if you're the kind of person that wants to do NASCAR, you want to do dirt, you want to do road, you want to do all this stuff, and you want to have a lot of variety, that's going to cost you a lot of money. So, like I said, it just depends what you're after, but I will say that the level of detail in iRacing, the tracks and how the cars feel, they really do try to make these tracks insanely accurate. And you could tell when you, like, for instance, when I was trying Laguna Seca and Monza in this game, they were completely different than Gran Turismo Sport. Because obviously I know those tracks like the back of my mind, and when I hit a couple curbs at Monza, I thought my car was going to blow up in this game. I wasn't aware of how severe some of those curbs are at Monza until playing iRacing. So I do assure you that it's a completely different experience when you start, booting up tracks that you know from Gran Turismo. Okay, so next question. Actually, okay, so this is an interesting. Okay, so do you think that iRacing is as competitive as Gran Turismo Sport? This is another weird question. So a lot of people, big time PC guys are going to be like, well, of course iRacing is more competitive than Gran Turismo, but I don't know. I mean, at the top level, I think anything is competitive. So whether you play Gran Turismo, whether you play iRacing, if you are at the top level of anything, it's going to be extremely competitive, and it's going to be very hard. Okay? When I compete in FIA, I think I probably got 20 or 30% more gray hair on my beard, just because everyone is so good, and it's stressful. It's hard. It's not easy. Like, those are very talented drivers in Gran Turismo that you play in top split. I mean, it's no joke. So to be at that level in that game is extremely difficult. But then also, if you were a pro at iRacing, of course that's going to be difficult as well. I will say that I think there's more to worry about, like I said earlier, in iRacing, and I would say that it's a little bit harder playing iRacing than it is Gran Turismo. But keep in mind that in this game, you can download a crew chief that will do all the math for you in terms of your pit strategy and all that, and let you know like how much fuel you're burning. So it can be easy in some ways with strategy, because you have a crew chief that's going to kind of do all the work for you. So it's kind of tough to compare the two. I would say at a high level, both of them are extremely competitive, and I wouldn't look at it that way. Just play whatever you enjoy and whatever force feedback that you like. Now let's talk about the pros. This is something I want to talk about. Let's talk about the pros of Gran Turismo. So where does Gran Turismo fit in versus iRacing? Well, to me, I keep hitting the mic. To me, Gran Turismo kind of fits into this category of the casual racer. So, like, let's say that you're a really big fan of racing, but you don't really want to go out and, spend money on a $2,000 computer to try iRacing, but you really want to, learn how to drive. You really want to get into the sim world. You got yourself like a T300 or a G29 or whatever. I think that personally, Gran Turismo is the perfect place to be. Gran Turismo is what got me started into doing sim racing. if I would have never played Gran Turismo, I would have never been having this conversation. I would have never experienced, you know, a set of Corsa Competizione. So I think that you can learn a lot from that game, and I think that Gran Turismo Sport is actually underappreciated for how good it can make you going into these other kind of sims. I mean, honestly, the braking points are the same. You learn understeer, you learn oversteer. Yeah, it's a little simplified. It doesn't have damage. You know, it's a little bit more simple, but you can still learn a lot and become a great driver going into a sim like this. But at the end of the day, guys, it really just depends how serious you are. You can't go wrong. If you want to save a little bit of money, you can have an insanely competitive experience with Gran Turismo. Don't let anyone tell you that Gran Turismo is not competitive, because it is. If you take it serious, if you compete in FIA, you are going to meet some racers that are incredibly fast. So in terms of competition, guys, you can have it in both games. So anyway, I hope this helps some of you guys that are on the fence that maybe thinking about getting iRacing. Don't think it's necessary. It just depends on your budget. It depends on the equipment that you have. I hope this helps, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, guys.